The King of Fighters franchise is one of the most beloved fighting game IPs of all time, and it has had, his ups and lows, just like SNK. But SNK right now, it's probably on its best financial and commercial state of all time as a company, and the future of the King of Fighters franchise should be very bright. So, let's talk about what can happen in the next years with the King of Fighters. If you like fighting game content, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing. Of course, let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen with KOF and SNK after Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. Let's get into it. As we all know, SNK is going to drop out Fatal Fury City of the Wolves next year. I'm confident that it's going to be a very good game, a hit. It's going to be on the top of the best gameplay that we can have on modern fighting games. I don't know if it's going to be as mainstream as SF6 or Tekken 8, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to do well. So taking that into account, what can happen with KOF? KOF 15 right now received a new patch that is probably going to be the last patch of the game, with 2 new characters and the last balanced updates. But I don't think that SNK is going to keep giving KOF 15 more support in terms of development. Maybe one more patch or one more DLC character. But we all know that KOF 15 is pretty close to being done. And the game was good, I played the game a lot, but at the end of the day, it was still a game from that section of SNK's financial state in which, they did a lot of work to get the best game they could, and it was still mediocre, at least on graphical terms. If we compare KOF 15 with the games that we had at that moment, like Guilty Gear Strive, SNK was really behind in comparison to the other developers, and some years later we got SF6 and Tekken 8, which look incredible. So SNK needs to develop a new King of Fighters that has the graphical fidelity, at least that Fatal Fury City of the Wolves has. Now, that game is not necessarily, super high-end in terms of graphics, but it has a very good concept art and style, and visual design. And that's what SNK needs to go with the next King of Fighters. In the history of the King of Fighters as a franchise, it was a game that had a lot of releases. There were some years even in which we got like 1 KOF a year, and a lot of those games were really good. Other ones felt very similar to the last, iteration, but games like the King of Fighters 98 Ultimate Match and games like also King of Fighters 2002 Ultimate Match, are very iconic games. One could even consider them, inside the top 10 fighting games of all time because of how iconic and good they were in terms of everything, roster, visual design, gameplay. But the King of Fighters series right now needs to have a good next game. If the KOF series does not get a game that looks at least as good as Fatal Fury City of the Wolves and has good gameplay, a good roster, it's going to be very hard for SNK to keep competing with the big dogs like Capcom and Bandai. And at the end of the day, if we look at SNK's goals as a company, some time ago they specified that they want to be one of the biggest video game developers in the world. It is not their goal to be a niche company or to be only a fighting game developer. They want to extend, their IPs and make very famous games, like making some sort of action RPGs and stuff like that. Some, Souls-like games one could even think about. But if they want to go ahead and get that big, they need to make the fighting games a little bigger first, so that the characters in their IPs actually, start becoming a little more famous around the world. Of course, a lot of these characters are already very famous in some sections of the world, but if you want to make new games about them, you either gotta make the fighting games better, or you gotta go the other way around and basically make a super hit, a AAA game with fighting characters, so that the fighting games start getting more attention. Now, what is the connection between Fatal Fury City of the Wolves and KOF? Because if we're getting that new Fatal Fury and it's sort of like the main IP that SNK wants to go for, what is gonna happen to KOF? Are we really gonna get, for example, KOF 16 relatively soon with the same visual style that Fatal Fury has? Or are we not getting a new KOF until the development cycle for Fatal Fury City of the Wolves ends? which could be, on 2029, 2030. It would be incredibly weird to not get a new KOF relatively quickly, because KOF 15 was a very good game, but it felt like, sort of, it didn't feel like a mainline game. It felt like the game in which the company says, okay, we're getting this out, we need a game for the next couple of years until we really get a heavy hitter game, and after that we have to, develop a new KOF that is actually sort of a triple A game, So we really need a new KOF from SNK in not that much of a long time. Like, if we had to wait 5-6 years for KOF 16, I think that it would be pretty rough for the IP and the company in commercial and financial terms. Now, the other thing that could happen is that since SNK wants to move on from only doing, big fighting games, and they also want to make a lot of AAA games that are super mainstream, we could get some sort of action RPG, MMO, whatever you want to call it, or hero game with SNK characters and with KOF characters. I think that it could work very well, because SNK and KOF have some of the most gorgeous, characters. They are very good looking, they have a lot of personality. So I can see, SNK saying, okay guys, we're developing, a 3D game like, I don't know, like Dark Souls, but as a beat them up, and you can play as KOF characters on it. I can see that happening. But are they really gonna go that route instead of doing KOF 16 first? I don't know what's gonna happen, but I really, wanted to talk about this because KOF is one of my favorite franchises, and it always has such good gameplay, such good characters. It only lacks on the visual front, and even though KOF 15 was an upgrade from KOF 14, we still need something better. Like, this is not enough to make a game, a big thing, especially with fighting games that over the last years have become gorgeous visually. They have such a high graphical fidelity, again, Guilty Gear Strive, Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, like, all those games look incredible. This game looks like a PS3 game, and that's fine. I don't really care about the visuals that much, but I know that other people do, and a lot of them. So as a company, as a gaming company, if you want to succeed, at a mainstream level, you cannot throw games that look like this out there, So I hope that SNK gets to do a new KOF, and it looks incredible, and it does very well. Let's hope it happens, and let's hope that SNK, gets to take the advantage of his new financial reality, and at the end of the day, develop the best games they can develop. If you enjoyed the video, again, consider giving it a like and subscribing, leave a comment with what you think about this, and see you on the next one, guys.